10% of annual profits has been put away towards impactful programs, and it's the highest commitment in the Kenya banking sector. And that work focuses on vital areas like education and skills development, economic empowerment, and enabling giving. But we're going to focus today and highlight environmental conservation. The I&M Foundation is dedicated to protecting precious natural heritage through strategic partnerships and community-driven initiatives, always ensuring a sustainable future for all. They believe in impact, and are achieving it through focused action. And we renew our pact to keep impacting. Learn more from the I&M Foundation's vital work and how you can potentially collaborate by visiting imbankgroup.com/foundation to learn more, powered by I&M Bank.
Let me talk to business owners. Are you having transactional costs that are cutting into your bottom line? Do you need capital to grow? Well, I&M Bank is powering your hustle with the I&M Solo Biz account. Lower your costs with free bank to M-Pesa and Airtel money transfers. Receive customer payments easily with Lipa na I&M. But there's more. Need to restock? Use Jazza Stock. Fulfilling a big order? Get LPO financing. Plus, access unsecured business loans of up to 5 million shillings. Stop just running your business. Start growing it. Open your individual or solo biz account today via the I&M Bank on the Go app.
Fantastic. Dr. Kenneth Ombongi is a senior lecturer at the University of Nairobi Department of History and Archaeology, has been here before and joins us this Monday morning, again in the hot seat of the Situation Room. Dr. Ombongi, good morning.
Good morning, Andrew. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm still alive and kicking.
It's a good thing.
Yes,
a very good thing.
It's been some time I was here, and I've just landed back.
You've landed back, and in that time, yet another conflict has rocked the world. And we are in the throes of it, and we're going to get into that in a minute, and then maybe ask ourselves the eternal question about why should several different jurisdictions talk about conflicts that may not necessarily touch on them. So we'll look into that in just a minute. But in another country, which I know you have experience in, comes a proverb that Dennis is going to share with us this morning. I would love your interpretation of it.
You know, this morning I've been thrown into the deep end because I'm sitting next to Doctor of History. And we are talking about the proverbs in the African continent. But we are in the East Africa region, and the country we're talking about is considered to be the home of coffee, the birthplace of coffee. And the one thing they have common with Kenya is that the athletes are watu wa masafa marefu, long distance runners. You know, talk about Bekeles of Ethiopia, talk about Haile Gebrselassie. And it is a country that has never been colonized before. They fought the Italians just because they are Ethiopians. And it is also the home of Blue Nile. And our proverb from Ethiopia, when the spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. When the spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. How would you interpret that?
Well, when the spider web unite,
Yes.
they can tie up a
lion.
lion. Very fascinating saying from Ethiopia, the land of Abyssinia, the ancient kingdom of Abyssinia, one of the most important civilizations in Africa. Basically, what I hear the proverb is saying is that, you know, I have a small you are. In a group, you acquire some extraordinary strength that can do extraordinary things. It is one proverb that seems to me to emphasize unity of purpose. It is one proverb that emphasizes working together, joining hands, and you can do some great stuff. You can do great things in the face of unity of purpose and working together and pulling towards the same direction. There are similar proverbs all around, even including the region.
Yeah.
I remember I told you, you used to sit there, that sometimes you don't have to go very far to look for this sage wisdom.
Yeah.
You can find it just next door.
Indeed.
If I went back to my village, I'll actually get the equivalent of a of the same.
We have them.
Yeah, so that's African wisdom.
Indeed.
Yeah, unity of purpose, working together.
Working together.
Umoja ni nguvu kwa
Udhaifu.
Kiswahili. Yeah.
Voila.
Yeah.
So just a week ago, I believe actually a week and 3 days ago, because it was on Friday that we saw the first launch attacks on Iran by Israel. And so much has happened since then. There's a lot of vowing that has taken place in between. Israel said that if they had to take an isolationist position and deal with the threat that comes from Iran, that they were going to go ahead and do that. Iran has said that under no circumstance whatsoever, unless it was a diplomatic intervention, would they be surrendering anything to anybody. We also hear Iran saying that what happened in terms of the attack towards them was one of preemption, that nothing had actually happened, but that Israel took a guess about what could be nuclear might on Iran's side and decided to act because they felt that there was an imminent threat. The Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei promises to punish the Zionist enemy in his first comments after the U.S. joined Israel's attacks on his country. On Friday, just last week, U.S. President Donald Trump said, you know what, we will probably take some action against Iran if they don't stop, and they have lived true to their promise. U.S. President Donald Trump hinted at a possible regime change in Tehran and said, if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? We have also seen the U.S. attempts at regime change in different parts of the Gulf. We saw the same in Afghanistan. One would ask the question, where is Afghanistan today? We saw the same in Iraq. One would ask, where is Iraq today? We saw an attempt at that in Libya coming into Africa. And then one would ask, what is the position of Libya today? When we hear the U.S. talk of regime change, we often see countries end up in dilapidated states. But before we go into that, let's look at the Iran-Israeli conflict at the moment and ask ourselves if it was necessary for the U.S. to enter into this conflict in the first place, and how then this affects the rest of us. Dr. Ari.
Thank you, Madam Du, for that kind of historical exegesis that you have given of this conflict. The question you are asking is if it was necessary for the U.S. To enter into this conflict. You only need to delve into a bit of the history of the Middle East and also the emergence of what we call modern Israel. Mm-hmm. And American diplomacy towards Israel over a period of time to be able to appreciate that, quote unquote, from the perspective of the United States national interest, it was almost a given that they will intervene. Mm. And I have this feeling that if you look through history, they could have intervened regardless of who was the president of the United States. Probably the means of intervention could have been different. But nevertheless, the United States could have intervened. There are two key factors that prompted the U.S. to intervene in this crisis. Of course, the obvious one, which everybody will want to talk about, is the United States still, regardless of the weakness that it has experienced lately because of fairly disruptive, right-wing policies, is still a superpower in the world. And over the years, it has used different regions of the world. You've mentioned the north of Africa. You mentioned different countries in the Middle East to demonstrate to who cares to listen that, hey man, we are still around.
Right.
We are the great boys of the world, and we survey. We lay surveillance to what is happening, and there are things we cannot allow to happen. That's of course one. The strategic factor of wanting to maintain the influence as the only standing superpower.
Yeah.
But the reality is that America is a giant in decline, if it was actually a giant. And then number two, we have the traditional relationship between Israel and America, where it is America's official foreign policy to protect Israel. There are internal forces within the United States that work towards informing this kind of policy, which of course ranges from the strong Jewish lobby in the Americas, and of course the role of America in creating what we call the Jewish state at the moment. Because of the threat that Iran seemed to pose with its fairly intransigency when it comes to bolstering its nuclear capabilities. The America suffers from the phobia of what Iran could do to Israel. And we have seen Trump consistently vowing that he will do something. Trump always has oscillated between, diplomacy and force in trying to solve the problem, unlike Obama, who basically used diplomacy to oversee or to maintain the situation in the Middle East. So because of that, Trump had to act. And then Iran caught itself between the two friendly powers and received a very hard hitting in the last 1 week, beginning with the last weekend from Israel itself, and of course the most recent this weekend from the United States.
Yeah.
So strategic interests, America's foreign policy towards the protection of Israel, and also its views on the proliferation of nuclear capabilities around the world. A very unfair way of looking at it. There's a contradiction there. Israel, we don't seem to know exactly its nuclear capability, but America is silent about it. Iran was actually hit not because of what it did,
what it could do,
but what it could do. Yeah.
So, Prof, if you look at the response, America attacking Iran, and the response as well from Iran towards that attack, there is fear that those who are considered to be American friends could also be in the line of attack in terms of response from America, from Iran, sorry. And you look at America as well, just talking about having a regime change and talking of making Iran great again. One begs the question, does the U.S. have any case against Iran?
Well, if you looked at it, just a moment ago referred to the contradiction that comes with this conflict. America is a known, nuclear state. It's also obvious that Israel has its own capability. But the nature of discriminative diplomacy, where countries which have that capability don't want other countries to have their own, is an obvious practice in international relations and general diplomatic history, if you looked at it. Therefore, this is, if you analyze it through history, a case of those who are able, oppressing those who are not able to stand their ground. And when you look at Tehran, they are saying, you can bomb our cities, you can bomb our nuclear sites, but we are not done yet. We are down, but not out. That is really expected for a country that is facing two strong powers of the world. One, which exercises a lot of influence and hegemony in the Middle East, and another one which exercises a lot of influence and hegemony across our planet. So I think the key point here is that Iran has a right to defend itself, if you look at it that way. And no country will come out, even when they are hard hit, to say, we are now down. You will want to throw your kicks around. And banking on friendly countries. You had the other day, Iran dispatched one of its top diplomats to Russia. China is watching things on the fringes and seeing what is happening. I know that many of the Arab countries are, strongly supporting, Tehran from behind the scenes. And, of course, there are non-state actors who have joined this conflict before. You talk about groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon. You talk about the Houthis in Yemen. And you talk about, there's another group in Gaza, Hamas. I'm sure wherever they are very tactfully and tacitly supporting Iran against the two powers, one regional and the other one global.
Dr. Mbongi,
yes.
My question is, on April 12th this year, the US and Iran began having some conversations, or a series of negotiations aimed at reaching a nuclear peace agreement.
The county government of Kisumu, with the approval of His Excellency Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o, hereby gives notice to all landowners in Kisumu County that 100% waiver of interest and penalties on outstanding rates has been granted. This waiver is valid from Thursday, 12th June 2025 to Monday, 30th June 2025. All landowners are strongly encouraged to take advantage of this waiver period. Note that the waiver applies only if you pay all the principal outstanding amount in full. All payments should be made through the Kisumu County Revenue Fund upon obtaining an official invoice from the county government. The public is hereby reminded that failure to clear the rates, the county government will apply the relevant laws to recover the outstanding amounts.
Israelis could have not attacked Iran without the knowledge of the Americans. And even the quick way and style the Americans have come in clearly tells you that this is something that has been happening between the two countries. So you clearly see that the negotiations, typical of Donald Trump, they were just used as a decoy. Probably to make Iran believe that we are negotiating. Because coming on the heels of those ongoing negotiations, Iran is hit. But if you look at from 2018, you could clearly see where Trump was heading during his first term as President of the United States. He came in and canceled the accord that Obama had nurtured, because in the agreement of 2015, where Iran went into an agreement with a number of European countries, of course including the America, particularly those of the permanent members of the Security Council, now Iran was being accused of having renegated on those agreements. Obama, using a lot of diplomacy, but continue with the traditional American foreign policy towards protecting Israel and also being against the nuclear proliferation, he actually upholded that agreement. Trump comes in and he cancels it. So I could be surprised if Tehran did not expect that in the midst of these talks, Trump and Israel will hit them. I think if the Iranian diplomats and war strategists could have expected the worst, dealing with an extreme right-wing president in Washington, fairly unpredictable in a number of things, they could have expected this, in my view.
I mean, and two quick ones. So you look at around, you talk about external attacks because you referred to, the Hamas, the Houthis, and all that, all these groups. And the ambassador was here, and we asked that question because there's always this conversation around Iran supporting them.
Yes.
And though they're saying they don't do that openly and they've never attacked anybody, but through proxy networks.
Yes.
Now, when you have external attacks, they often rally a population or people around hardliners. We had lessons from the 1980 to 88, the Iran-Iraq. What does this latest response suggest going into the future with all these groups around Iran? One. Two, how does Russia and China and several countries that have said America stay out of this? How do you see the realignment within the Middle East region and also in Europe with what now the US has done in Iraq and its clear support of Israel?
One obvious thing, of course, when you are talking to diplomats, they are speaking diplomatic language. And the diplomatic speak in its very nature is to moderate and understate things. But the reality is that if there are any chances of attacking U.S. interests or attacking Israel right now, they are likely to come from the non-state actors. The Hamas, the Houthis in Yemen, and Hezbollah. Because these are the groups you cannot pin to any location. They are basically what one could loosely call guerrilla tactics, but at the international level. And they cannot very easily be targeted by either Israel or America because you cannot locate them specifically the way they have located Tehran and bombed the nuclear places.
Sites, yeah.
I expect that the support from the Arab countries will be tacit and, kind of hidden because nobody wants to suffer a retaliatory attack from the United States. And Trump has demonstrated that he means what he says and he says what he means. Yeah, so the countries around the Middle East, which in their hearts and their minds are supporting Iran, are not going to be very open. It's fairly obvious.
Dr. Mbongi, we're going to go to break in just a minute, but when we come back from that, also we want to look at the ties towards Kenya and why it's important that Kenya has this conversation. Because I can already see comments and saying, well, you've got so much business to handle in Kenya. Why are you worried about a conflict that's happening, outside of even the region? But we'll come to that. But when we look at the tenets of international humanitarian law, for which a lot of these nations who are within this whole quagmire are party to, have ratified protocols around international humanitarian law, it is widely known and accepted that a conflict that comes about as a result of a preemptive thought is essentially against the tenets of international humanitarian law. That's clear. So when we talk about retaliatory conflict, such as what we see the US doing now, if it has no basis in terms of the genesis of a conflict and what actually spurred that on, how then do we allow that from the organs that practice and entrench international humanitarian law, from the United Nations to regional bodies and such? Why do we see the allowance of such to occur? That you cannot go to conflict based on thought or fear, but we see that there's retaliation taking place on a conflict that was born from a thought or a fear that was not established.
Madam Ndu, a choice between morality and national interest in the practice of international relations historically, national interest carries the day. At the moment, the United States and Israel are thinking about their national interests and the potential that Tehran or Iran poses to that, wherever they define what their national interest is. And I've just said that for the last several years, America's foreign policy towards the Middle East is guided by one key principle: the protection of Israel. So anything that poses any potential threat to that, it will face the kind of reaction that we have seen. Then humanitarian law comes second. To that, as it were. So that's very obvious. And Professor Hans Morgenthau told us many years back in his famous book Politics Among Nations, that the predominant factor in international relations is national interests, and countries relate in terms of what is in there for us. Yes.
Let's take a break at this point. Dr. Kenneth Mbongi joins us this hour as the senior lecturer at the United Nations.
Oh,
Possible
okay.
that could be.
As a good wish, I may end up in the
know.
United Nations.
Here we go. From your mouth to God's ears.
Yes.
University of Nairobi Department of History and Archaeology, and we're looking at Enter America, the high stakes of a distant war. We're going to come back from this break and maybe then answer those questions where folks are saying, don't we have enough things to discuss?
Yeah.
Or don't we have enough issues that we need to deal with, and we're now involving ourselves in a conversation around Israel and Iran? We'll come back and deal with that after this. It's 26 minutes to 9.
I make Monday count by reading Health and Science. It helps me eat healthy, live healthy, and stay healthy.
Setting the standard every day of the week. The Standard, Kenya's bold newspaper.
Unasonga huko kilo mahali mbali unatoa. Then you come back when you are not near part. Sawa sawa.
Okay, mtosi.
Usipo umeniitiza wazimu sasa. Nimekuja tu kwa sababu umeniambia kuja kuna nini?
Sasa nikwambie mama.
Hatuna kitu mama.
Mwambie. Ile kitu utaenda kunjionea leo. Sikundanganyi. Ni ajabu.
Makaa inaendaje kwa nyama? Na mimi ndio nauliza. Hizi zenyu zinaingiaje kwa makaa? Kwani nikigona ingo hivi mikakati. Mikakati ninjeke kuna. Ndio ngone kwa. Tuta fuata vile tuli. Unajua kitu moja. Inaitwa mikakati. Leta mtu wa manage nyumba yake.
Mimi msichana nitafuta hapa. Nilete panga inikate. Inikate miguu.
Excuse me sister, kutoka. Ani majirani wako?
Kabisa.
My good neighbor. Na wewe? Ulikucha lini?
Nashingo, twende.
Tupige hiyo kitu yenye mna.
A whole new world is waiting.
Welcome to Evergreen Mansion, Miss Jane. Miss Jane.
How come you all knew what I looked like when I booked online for this reservation? A ghost! Am I the only one who can see that ghost?
You need to shut up and listen because you are the ghost. Starting today, Evergreen Mansion will be your home until your soul finally crosses over to the afterlife. You still have 40 days to visit your family for a while.
Then how are we going to withdraw your cousin's money?
Give me that!
Let's start inside. Let's move fast.
I'm dead!
There's a ghost! What are you doing here? You're trespassing.
Mayo we. Bwana, ini vina nini naguzwa?
Duka iko kwa record zetu kweli? License moja imefanyiliwa hapa.
Ukiweza kulipa bike yetu utakujia kwa ofisi yetu. Chukua kitu toke.
Tulia.
1,000
kwa siku 7. Hiyo ni 7K.
7K.
Una-expect 4,000 kwa wiki anatoa wapi?
Naomba mtoke ama nitawaitia polisi.
Sisi ni maafisa wa serikali ya kaunti.
Nyinyi naona sasa mmeanza kukosa heshima kwa chairman wenyu.
Chairman nani nawezi saidia?
Lakini pia wewe Momanyi, yani uko tu hapo watafunamio na wenzako wako huko nje wanahangaishwa.
Officer please usinifungie.
Wewe.
Mazinga umbwe gani haya sasa?
Nobody messes with Benja. If you rattle a snake, expect to be bit.
I don't accept that.
Get ready for an unforgettable experience. At KTN, we've got it all.
Study anything about diplomacy is that although an ambassador may be seconded to a country to serve in that country, that they hold the position of their host nation wherever they are. And the one position that comes from the host is what they hold across board. So if you're the Israeli ambassador to Washington, or if you're the Israeli ambassador to Kenya, the position is the position of Israel. The same thing for the Islamic Republic of Iran. If you are the ambassador of the Islamic Republic of Iran to Kenya, or you are the if you're the ambassador of this Islamic Republic of Iran to Vietnam, you hold the position of Iran. Now, of course, both these sides have held fast to their positions. Israel saying that we will not allow any kind of threat. We will deal it in an isolationist position. Tehran saying we have a right to then be able to dabble in weapons of warfare. We can plan as we wish. But then here we are in East Africa having a conversation about what these two in the Gulf want to do, and we are forming opinions about what the US has done over the last 24 to 48 hours, and then we are forced to ask ourselves the question, why does this matter?
Okay. And before I come to that, briefly, let me respond to his question about Russia and
China.
And China. China's foreign policy is anchored around economic diplomacy as opposed to military diplomacy like the United States. The United States will post and say we have the strongest military in the world on earth and all that. But when you look at China's foreign policy, is one that is based on building itself economically, because that provides the basis for its stature in the international system. If I'm right on that, China will watch this on the sidelines. And if it has to support, it will tacitly support Tehran in ways of equipping itself militarily, not necessarily to fight, but to respond in such a ways that makes the other nations involved in this crisis to think twice before they attack Tehran again. Russia has its own problems to deal with. The war in Ukraine is still going on, draining the economy of Russia. The sanctions have started biting in. So to them also, I think the support is likely to be, one of trying to support Iran materially and to rebuild itself. Because I know for sure that the recent attacks has given Iran one of the reasons that it needed to say, you see, that is why we need to develop ourselves. And if you see the way it has been developing its enriched uranium over the last 15 years, in fact, the estimates are that it's about 60% of the uranium enrichment in recent years. We are not quite sure about that. That is information we are receiving from the West. But it has now a reason to say we have a right to protect ourselves. We have a right to stand on our own. So I don't foresee I'm a historian. My brother, somebody says that if historians have to be prophets, they are prophets of the past. So I'm using those patterns of the past just to see what will happen tomorrow. I don't see the direct involvement of the two great powers, Russia and China, in this conflict directly. They might want to work with Iran in such a ways that bolster its nuclear capability as we go on, its military support as we go on, but not directly involved, probably in joining in attacking the US or in attacking Israel. Now, back to your question. Why are we talking about a crisis in the Middle East, very far away from Nairobi? We say in my village that war has no eyes. So when it
and
affects,
no other, also the alphabet eyes either, but okay.
Yes. The Middle East geopolitically is an important part of this world. We get our oil from this region. Already, I suspect that with Iran now ordering the closure of the port of Hormuz, we are going to begin to feel the pressure because of the increase of the oil prices. So we may not be right in the crisis of this distant war, but the war is going to walk into our homes through the price of bread and petrol. Believe you me, just give it a couple of days. So you may not be interested in that war in the Middle East, but it is interested in us. Take it from me on that. We have seen it before. The second factor is that, we have in the past suffered as a country, Kenya.
Yes.
We have suffered attacks, terrorist attacks, because we are friends of America.
Yeah.
We are friends of the European Union. Westgate is still very fresh in our minds. Dusit too. Actually, Westgate is very close to where I live. You know, it's very fresh in our minds. The attack on the American embassy way back in 1998 is still very fresh. There are Kenyans nursing wounds because of being attacked over a crisis that is far away. So the friends you keep in international relations determines the way the rest of the world reacts to you. In Nairobi has the largest embassy of America, I think, in the continent as we speak. We are, already, if the world has decided which side of this conflict that we are in. We may try to, use diplomatic speak and going around, beating around the bush. But the reality is that our foreign policy is one that has supported the American position, that has supported the Israeli position. And we have suffered for that. That's why I've always advocated for what scholars of international relations call positive diplomatic engagement, where you engage with both sides in such a ways that benefits you. You are a friend to neither, and you are not an enemy to either. That could have helped us, but we have in the past shown that we are pro-American. We have a lot of support militarily from the United States. The American base is already here in our coast. So we are not going to run away from this, and that's a second factor.
Right.
The third one, this conflict is directly going to affect us. You see, if you have not seen in this past week, the world has stopped talking about the African problems, and which are many, from the Sudanese, both the Republic of Sudan in Khartoum, And also South Sudan, they still have a problem. The Horn of Africa is consistently on the edge in terms of peace and violence and stability. So we are going to be forgotten.
In terms of
yes.
Sorry, in terms of diplomatic ties, still on that train of thought.
Yes.
Kenya sometimes abstains in UN votes.
Yes.
On Israel, Palestine, and some of these countries in the Middle East to try and preserve that the Arab ties.
Yes.
Or non-aligned friendships.
Yes.
And this often draws criticism that, hey, you can't sit on the fence. So we've had relations with the US, and Kenya has historically aligned itself with the US position.
Yes.
But now we have 3 countries here, and there could be more going into the future as this conflict escalates. So we have America, and America obviously has interests in Kenya. Now you have Israel, and now you have Iran. So these are 3 countries. Because of those criticism of you can't sit on the fence, how would you then see Kenya responding to this? How does Kenya align itself? Because it has relations with all these 3 countries.
Well, that's why I advocated a moment ago for what I see as tactical silence on the part of Kenya. Because honestly, if you were sitting in our Ministry of Foreign Affairs and formulating our foreign policy towards the Middle East, there are things you can't say at the moment. There are things you can't do. So you better keep your mouth closed and watch the situation very carefully. And remember that this crisis has a very strong but tacit support of China. China is one of our leading partners. We call them development partners. Whether they are or not, that's debate for another day. So that's why I would say tactical silence, tactical non-action for now, as we watch the way the crisis unfolds as a country, will actually pay than taking sides. We made a blunder as a country a few moments ago when we seemed to contradict the African Union position in relation to the attacks that happened, I think, last year. And it didn't go down very well. So at the moment, if I was asked and learning from my historical mind, is let's watch the situation very carefully. Let us not say much as a country, but let's keep all these as our friends, if that serves our national interest. You see, the president, our president has tried to say we are neither going to the west nor going to the east, we are going forward, echoing the words of Kwame Nkrumah in the 1960s, when a young journalist asked Nkrumah whether he was pro the east or pro the west. And Nkrumah turned and looked at this young man and said, young man, we are neither going to the east nor are we going to the west, we are going forward. Our current president seems to have tried to balance that, but sometimes we have missed a step here or there. I hope this time round we will not make that mistake because we need China. I have come here in 10 minutes from my house because of the expressway. Expressway reminds you of China, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right.
So, Daktari,
Mombasa Road is there. Already there are talks that it will be built by the Americans. So let's eat from both sides of our mouth, if there is such a thing in international relations.
So, Daktari, if you look at Kenya's relations with Iran, one would just go back to 2023 when former President Raisi visited the country, and the bilateral agreements that were agreed upon between the two countries talk about agriculture, the vehicle manufacturing plant that it was to be set up in the country, and one would look at with this war, Iran would now start looking inward forward on how to protect its people, and Kenya would stand to lose from all these bilateral agreements that had been signed. But still, in the same breath, one would hope that people would have an opportunity to sit at the table and come up with a solution, which begs the question, is there room for diplomacy in this raging war?
Obviously, yes. I think we are very clear, and there are clear lessons from history that no country develops by erasing other countries from the face of the world. Whether you call this preemptive strategy of disarming Iran or whatever it is, the grudge of Iranians against this will be there for centuries to come. They will tell their children and children of their children what the Israelis have done, you know. So that's why, for me, I will advocate for some kind of diplomacy agreeing. Tehran has already expressed the desire to return to the negotiating table. And it's unfortunate that America attacked. The Israelis could have not relented, but also Iran has retaliated using its ballistic, missiles. That's why you realize, I think it was last week, that Israel banned any communication of any means from within the country. So you might not know what is going in a lot. So all these countries involved, the potential of the IIU crisis. IIU crisis means, Iran, Israel, and the United States escalating to become a global conflict fought in many fronts is quite high. And therefore the necessity of sitting around the table and discussing about this.
What are the indicators to point that it's potential that it could be global?
Well, one, of course, is the overtures that Tehran is making to Russia. Tehran is making to China. And I think remotely also the overtures towards India. And you're talking about nuclear powers, like the United States. That's one clear sign that if not properly handled, this crisis is going to escalate and become a global problem. And if the non-state actors take over this shortly, they actually may not attack Israel. They may not attack the United States. They will attack the interests of these countries away from the Middle East. And that's where Kenya comes in.
There you go.
We cannot afford another Westgate, but it is likely, if this thing is not handled very well, we cannot afford another Dusit 2 attack. But we are likely to have that if this crisis doesn't end. The same thing applies to where, America, the European Union, and Israel have interests in Africa and elsewhere in the world. A simple thing we have seen before, where terrorists have now moved, or the people we call terrorists, we label them, have moved away from, attacking the enemy directly. They will attack the friend of the enemy. So all these are very clear signs that if not managed very carefully, using, once again, diplomacy, then things will escalate into full-scale World War III. Even the two world wars we have had, they were actually not world.
Yeah.
There were European wars fought in many fronts. This could be the Middle Eastern war that will be fought in many fronts. The other sign is America's foreign policy is not as predictable right now as probably it could have been during Joe Biden's time or Obama's time. President Trump has his own way of doing things. Trumpism in its very nature is actually fairly erratic,
sporadic,
unpredictable, and sporadic. If we may use all those terms, you know. I guess everybody in the world is sitting on the edge and wondering what next. From Washington, from Tel Aviv, from Tehran, you know, from Beijing, from Moscow, from Delhi, you know, from Islamabad. You know, those are known nuclear powers in the world who have taken positions in different positions in this crisis. So we are at the verge, if we are not very careful, and I'm not a prophet of doom, but it's very clear that we are at the verge of the third world war if this thing is not managed properly.
Well, speaking of Trump, I'm just reading here, the very latest is that Trump is actually floating or mulling over the idea of a massive change in Iran's leadership. There's a conversation around the impact of what they did, which is still unclear because the other, you know, countries around Iran are saying they didn't detect any radioactivity around the area. So the impact assessment is another question. But what the U.S. president is now saying, he's floating that idea of a regime change. Isn't this the common denominator or the narrative that the U.S. in any country that has had conflict,
it plays.
That has always been the playbook.
You know, my brother, when you look at America's foreign policy, you realize the truth of what philosopher Friedrich Hegel, that was Karl Marx's teacher, said many years ago. That the only lesson he learned from history is that people don't learn from history. You see, America for decades now has talked about regime change. And that regime change, and she's alluded to it earlier, has not led into anything meaningful in way of stability, peace in the countries where this has happened. Libya was one of the most prosperous countries in the world. Before America convinced the world that General Muammar Gaddafi was the evil man that they needed to get rid of. The guy they labeled an evil man is the guy who reorganized the healthcare of his people, provided water for the first time in a desert land to every family, assured that every family had something to eat. To dramatize it, I'm told that they could organize even for payment of dowry for young people who wanted to marry. I wish I were in Libya then. Then America convinced us that Gaddafi was evil. They got rid of him. Has Libya gotten peace?
No.
Let's go to Egypt. Egypt was once one of the shining stars of the African continent. In fact, I like at some point when Mazrui, Professor Ali Mazrui was talking about recolonization of Africa, and he grouped African countries, the African continent into regions, the northern part, the eastern part, the western part, and the southern part. And he said the regional hegemonic powers should recolonize all those countries that are causing problems. So in the north, he actually identified Egypt. In Eastern Africa, he identified Kenya. In West Africa, he identified Nigeria. And in Southern Africa, he identified South Africa. That is how well Egypt was doing. Okay, and it is a strong man, Hosni Mubarak. Regime change.
And where are we today?
Where are we today? I mean, we can go on. And closer to America, Haiti. You know, Haiti is now becoming a buzzword in Kenya because our police officers are there. America has advocated for regime change in Haiti over the years, including right now. What has Haiti become? The lesson you need to learn is that, and this is what history has taught us, it is very difficult for imperial intentions to fight nationalism.
There you go.
the strong nationalistic spirit which comes in Tehran, mixed with a lot of religious teachings. So that theocratic nationalism in Iran is not something you'll find. You'll slaughter a few people today, but the more you slaughter, the more hydra-headed. The phrase we use, hydra-headed, that proverbial snake. If you cut one head, it
another
grows
one
two.
pops up here.
In fact, not another one, it grows two.
Two more.
Two more. So regime change, I'll tell you for free, and you can take this to the bank. The banks are just about to open. It will not work.
Dr. Kenneth Ombongi, always a pleasure. Thank you for doing that with us this morning and also showing us the relevance of this conversation today. It was necessary to do, and we'll see what happens in the coming days.
Thank you, Andy, and Andu and your colleagues here. It's always a pleasure to be here to see how you are spicing up things. Thank you, and God bless you.
Asante Sana, and you too. Good morning. It's almost 9:04, but a good one to have. Time for the news.